All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Jim Bray, and I officially am starting the EAC meeting for June 12th, 2025. Now, we don't have a quorum. Two of our members are having difficulty, getting in, logging in through Zoom. So since we don't have a quorum, we'll still be going through the agenda, but we're just not going to be voting on any issue. So. All right, the first item is the review approval of the April 10th and May 8th meetings minutes. So we're not going to be able to do that. So we will defer that to the next meeting. The 2024 Long Range Master Tree Plan. Discuss recent spring planning and proposed fall planning. So just recently, we planted 49 trees as part of the 2024 Long Range Tree Plan. And they were planted in two locations. One of them is right across the road where we planted several sweet bay magnolia, serviceberry. These are low trees with beautiful, beautiful blossoms in the spring. And at Memorial Park, I was actually just there today, and we planted roughly about 30 thornless honey locusts, and they are all looking good too. That was about last week that occurred. As far as the planting that's going to take place this fall, right now, Alan and I are trying to set up a meeting at the end of June with Jim Majewski. We have in the long range plan calls for about 1,545 trees. Now, we have planted probably a couple of hundred, but generally, every time the planting season starts coming around, the EAC meets with LMT management, and we have a large list of recommendations. Now, in the 2024 plan itself, there were specific recommendations about planting certain species trees in certain areas. But in order to add flexibility to the plan, what we actually did in the 2024 plan was different than the earlier one. We added what we call reserve trees that basically don't have a home, because our experience under the 2016 plan was that as soon as you have a plan, it starts changing. So, and every time we had minor changes, we'd have to take that to the board for their approval. Well, this way, the reserve trees are already approved. So basically, it's up to the EAC and township management where we want to place these trees. So anyway, like I said, we're trying to meet with Jim on June 25th, and hopefully we'll end up with a plan for this spring planting. We're envisioning roughly maybe about 180 trees, I think, in this planting. Any questions on, the long range plan? All right. So the next item on the agenda is recycling, and Alan and Dominique actually are the two main people who work on that. Now, Alan's not available, and to be honest with you, we've already had 2 recycling events. Generally, we have 3 a year. So I don't think it's critical that we really have to talk about that, right now. Generally, it would be sometime in the fall, I think. So any other questions or comments on that? All right, the next item on the agenda is the single trash hauler analysis. And John, this is something that I think, we certainly need some input from you on. I've been talking to Alan about this and some of the other members, and I think there's a lot of ways that this can be done. Initially, we were talking about basically one hauler, okay? But in talking to some of the other people, there are certainly different ways you can do it by dividing, for instance, the township into thirds or halves or quarters and bidding on specific quarters, and then the high bidder on a particular quarter gets that quarter, and then the second highest bidder, if he or she will match the first bid, would actually get the second quarter. That's one way of doing it. There's probably many, many ways of doing this. I think the idea is to provide equity to maybe some of the small haulers as well. But anyway, this is an item that we're going to be discussing more and hopefully relatively soon, because the EAC feels that this is an important issue. You know, the basic bottom line is that you don't want 16 trash trucks a week going up and down your roads when you can have only 4 and accomplish the same thing, and generally at a lower cost to the consumer as well. So this is something that we will be talking to you about, John. Any comments?
One area that I've been hearing about, pardon me as I get a little closer here, is the needs of HOAs, because they do individually basically have single hauler within their communities, and they have to bid that out in the process around that. There are a number of HOAs in Lower Makefield that potentially working together with them could begin the process around that. And they also have some unique needs that could be worth considering. So it wouldn't be necessarily a full loaf, but it could be a way to get all the HOAs together to work to reduce haulers within HOA communities within Lower Makefield. So I've had some discussions with HOA board members who've mentioned that as an option to think about. And that also might address some of the concerns that others might have in terms of like a one-size-fits-all type of solution, because the HOAs have some unique needs in terms of size and hauling requirements. And so potentially that could be an avenue, maybe not that would service the entire township, but it might provide a framework for further discussion. I know many HOA board members were supportive, but did not appear out of fear of the crowd.
Right.
But that being said, my discussions with board members is there isn't quite the appetite to push very hard right now on that. And so there's not, in my mind, necessarily an immediate push from them. So I do have discussions with a lot of folks who give me their input and things like that. As you know, last time we spoke, I was thinking about entering the trash hauling business because I was like, wow, this is quite a lucrative venture here.
Remember that?
I got to work on this trash truck leases. It's like 600,000 for a really nice truck. But it looks like we have a general call. Someone's joined the call, so you may have a quorum now.
How do I do that here? I don't.
Do you need me to admit somebody?
Someone's iPad.
Admit all.
Yeah, see if that helps. I'm not sure who that is though.
Is Dave still?
Oh, there you go.
There we go.
Hey.
All right. Okay. All right. Can you hear us, Alan?
Yeah, did I miss anything?
Okay. All right. Okay. Actually, now we have a quorum, so we're going to go back to item 1, okay, which is the review approval of April 10th and May 8th, 2025 meeting minutes. Does anybody have any issues with those? If not, I will put forth a motion to approve the minutes for both those dates. Okay. No discussion. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So, Alan, we just discussed the long-range master tree plan. And, I told him about our meeting with John, hopefully with Jim at the end of the month. The recycling, we don't have another date. What are you thinking about? Maybe sometime in the fall?
Yeah, I was thinking November 1st. It's easy to remember.
Is that a Saturday?
Yeah, it's right after Halloween, so we'll have lots of Halloween styrofoam. I don't know, but yeah.
All right, well, yeah,
can do
All right,
it.
is that date good with everybody? All right, so November 1st will be our probably third and probably the last recycling event of the year.
Yeah,
Okay. And John, we just talked briefly about the single trash hauler analysis. And, John talked about some of the HOAs. I mean, to me, that's a clear indication of why it works so well. I do not know, I could be wrong, I do not know of an HOA in Lower Makefield Township that does not have a single trash hauler. Maybe there is, but to me, it just absolutely makes sense. And the other thing I'd like to add is that in the United States, 70% of people are covered by a single trash hauler. So there's nothing new or scientific about this stuff. Anyway, and Ellen, John indicated that probably right now the board doesn't have, a real strong interest in this, but, we on the EAC will be working with them in the future. Okay.
all right. Well, if we ever bring it back, we need a strong strategy. We know what the opposition is, and we need to address their concerns in a, organized fashion, because it'll come.
Okay. Well, as they say, Rome was not built in a day. Okay. So,
I have a question. How many HOAs are there in Lower Makefield?
I'm not exactly sure. It's a great question. There could be over 10. I don't know.
over 10, I bet there's 30 or 40.
Yeah.
More than that.
Wow.
I started thinking about the very same question you're talking about, John,
Yeah.
and I started adding them up, and I couldn't, I don't come up with a firm number, but they're all over the place.
Yeah. If you're thinking 30, it's very possible there could be 30 or 40. And the reason why I'm not thinking about that is there are some developments that'll have 2 HOAs based on the section of the development. So yeah.
And
Hmm.
so who can we ask that question? Who would know the answer to? I wonder.
The number of HOAs?
Yeah.
Jim Majewski might know.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll test Jim on that one. Okay. All right. Before we move any further, we have a guest at our meeting, Doug Marshall, and Doug talked to us briefly before the meeting, and I promised him he wouldn't have to stay till the end of the meeting. Doug, firstly, see if your microphone is working.
Hello.
Okay. And Doug
I feel like
would like to make some comments about an open space plot that he thinks maybe the township might want to take a look at.
Actually, I noticed something else also, which I could take 10 seconds to cover. But regarding the open space, I wanted to just mention that I feel that it's enormously important to preserve as much open space as possible. And in fact, I understand that here in Lower Makefield Township, that's a sentiment shared by about 70% of the residents. I mean, certainly we can't force any individual resident to sell the development rights to us. But I do want to use the funds that we have, or the borrowing capacity we have, to pursue whatever we can. And I wanted to draw your attention to a particular piece of property on Big Oak Road where I live. My wife and I live in Yardley Crest. And if you travel a little further down Big Oak Road toward Morrisville, you'll see that on the left-hand side of the road, there is a logging operation behind which are just a large number of woods. Just vibrant, wonderful habitat for habitat. As opposed to, for example, a farm, which is kind of a monoculture and it wouldn't support a lot of individual species. This is just without me having walked through this private property, I think it would be ideal for us to approach this owner to see if he would be interested. And I understand it was done about 15 years ago. I remember meeting this man. He did me the favor of driving me someplace. I didn't have my car. And at that time, he was probably in his 50s. So at this point, maybe he is interested in selling development rights, and maybe it wouldn't hurt to approach him. So that's something I wanted to bring the attention of the EAC. And just very, very quickly, I noticed here, there's something here about microplastics. I just saw in the Epic Times and also was in the New York Post or the Washington Post, 90%, I mean, I guess we're all familiar with microplastics and how dangerous they are, and they're invading our bodies. And 90% of all microplastics come from one source: plastic water bottles. And I see these young kids on the road, in their athletic fields and whatnot, and they're, of course, rehydrating or hydrating with plastic water bottles. And so I just wanted to throw that out there. By the way, if there's anything else, the other two that were mentioned, chewing gum and tea bags. Not loose tea, tea bags. So there it is. I'm done. Thank you for allowing me this brief interruption of the. And finally, let me say, I just want to thank everybody up here for doing this. What a public service. People don't generally appreciate it, but we do appreciate it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And
Oh, well, thank you for the kind words, Doug. And also, we did chat a little before the meeting, and I was actually the person who approached the owner, I'd say 15 years ago, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. And it's a really nice piece of property.
Yeah.
At the time, he was not interested. But this is something, since you brought it up again, that the EAC will discuss with the Board of Supervisors to see if the board has any interest in moving forward on that.
Do you have the address on that one?
I don't, but
I
I can
couldn't
get
hear
it
what
pretty easy. Alan, I think you have the address on that, right?
Yeah, I know where it is. I'll write up a little description of the property, some specs on it and who owns it and for how long. And I'll send it out to the group, including you, John, so we have some
Awesome.
background on it.
All right, and Doug, if
And
you
yet-
leave us your contact info before you leave, we'll see that you get a copy of that as well.
Okay, I mean, I can give you my email right now if you'd like, or I can just email
Sure.
it's MARSHAL, just one L.
Okay, Marshall, MARSHAL.
D as in dog at Comcast.net.
Okay, Marshall D at com. Okay,
I'm Kim.
sounds good. And also, I would, I'm sorry, you.
Well, I was just going to ask you, were you at the microplastics,
What, I'm sorry?
the microplastics lecture a couple of weeks ago?
I just saw that here, and that's what brought it to my attention.
Yes, yes.
I wish I was aware of it. Well, I'm afraid I missed that.
Isn't it online?
Yeah,
Yes.
actually,
Yeah, it's
I'll
recorded.
go, I'm gonna look it up. I'll.
right. If you go to lmt.org and you go under the EAC, you're going to see there's a recording. It's
Okay.
about an hour, and I think you'll find it quite interesting.
I look forward to it. Thank you. And
On that regard, the EAC is also interested in moving forward with a single-use plastics bag ordinance. There are several municipalities around us that have that form of legislation, and some of the surrounding states like New York, Jersey, Delaware, and I'm not sure about Maryland, but they have it too. So this is something that we are going to be discussing with the Board of Supervisors in the future, not too distant future either. So,
okay,
all right. And again, thank you for coming out, Doug.
thank you.
Okay, now we have another question for John. Review proposed chicken ordinance. We have come up with, which we think is a first-class chicken ordinance, John. And now we want the board to tell us what to do with it.
So, for,
Hey, come on, this is serious stuff, John.
so it is actually, my daughter's been working with chickens this summer at a farm. So she has this lovely picture with her and a chicken. But so the next step is we're going to be getting it to the planning commission for review. It's going to continue its review process. So I don't know I spoke with the chair about this. I don't know when it's slated for full board consideration. But it is in very solid shape. So it's not like something that would probably need rework or much in the way of editing. There's that half acre threshold,
Right.
which may cause concerns for some folks because they have less than a half acre. So we'll see how that goes. We have had one zoning hearing board request related to chickens recently, but it's not a frequent request. So we've averaged less than one per year, just kind of give you an idea of the overall demand for it. That being said, the folks that spurred the change.org petition, I actually spoke with the people at change.org, believe it or not. And there are multiple of those chicken petitions around the country that it appears that there are many folks who are interested in rethinking that. So at this time, and again, the chair sets the agenda and the process around that. I did speak with him, and his intent was to make sure that it gets the full review before making sure that, you know, everybody's had a chance to review it to make sure it's good. But
And, you know, at that time, the EAC is certainly willing to put on a presentation to the board. And when you say something about a half acre threshold, we took a good look at everything in that ordinance. And, you know, we don't have to discuss it thoroughly now, but there was a good reason for putting in half
no,
acre.
it makes a lot of sense. And the challenge in any of these kinds of ordinance situations is you want to provide the most freedom possible for folks, but also make sure that you're not causing unintended, you know, consequences or externalities on others related to noise, waste, if you will, and general safety.
Oh.
That's a bird.
It's an appropriate added feature to the Environmental Council.
Is that a chicken?
What? Oh, the noise here?
There's a bird.
Oh,
Screaming
Is-
kid.
Oh, okay, or a screaming kid, one of the two. Anyway, so,
I think it's a
Um,
screaming kid.
okay.
I'm near a playground.
And John, well, that certainly makes sense. And we also put in some prohibitions about roosters. You know, we have a place up in Vermont, and I still remember vividly a couple of years ago, about 5 a.m, and a rooster's call at the 5 a.m. will actually levitate you off your bed. It's something that you have to hear to believe.
Yeah.
So anyway, enough said about roosters.
I also wanted to bring up, during my research, there's a website, backyardchickens.org or something like that. It's not really current, but it's a good resource to see what other communities are doing too.
Yeah, and also one last comment. Kevin was the one who spearheaded our chicken ordinance effort, and I think he really did a good job. It was, you know, a lot of investigation. Kevin, I forget, it might have been 10 or 12 municipalities that he looked at as far as these ordinance. So anyway, nice job, Kevin. All right, the next thing on the agenda, Birdtown, PA, update for additional 2025 activities. Jeanne?
Well, one of our projects that will be coming up probably in the fall is, on my piece of paper, is the everybody just relax. Oh, the Mercer County Wildlife Center. Many of us may have passed it on
River
Big
Road.
River Road
Right.
in New Jersey, but anyway, we've never seen their animals, and they see get something like 1,200 animals a year. So we've always had good luck it's showing the birds or showing other live animals. I think the kids particularly love it. So that's one project. And we're doing some collaborating with Yardley Borough with their EAC and I would like to do one more, I think. Nope, I think that's about it. The wildlife, definitely we want to do the wildlife. And that will be in the fall. Did I say that? Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Jeanne. And I might add too that the last live exhibition we had was with the ARC Rehab Center, and there were over 70 people there. And a lot of them were children. The children absolutely love events like this too.
Yes.
So, you know, in Lower Makefield, even though we're an environmental council, we have lectures and stuff like that. And you can involve the children. I think it's just an added plus. So.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. I remembered what the other subject was, is that the Pennsylvania Game Commission is giving us 3 bird boxes for prothonotary warblers. We all know what prothonotary warblers are, right?
I think you get a plus for being able to pronounce
Yeah.
that, by the way, so.
That's why I was, but they're a lovely yellow bird, and the Game Commission person is dropping them off at our house next week, and I hope somebody wants to come and help put them up. And we're putting them up in the area, you know, the area that's on the canal, but maybe a third of a mile up toward Morrisville, and it got really smashed in this last series of storms a few months ago, and you used to be able to walk down and walk across, but anyway, they're going to be put up there, and maybe all 3. And the birds are just beautiful, and they're not too common around here. So anybody that wants to, if anybody wants to volunteer to put up, Kevin, are you?
Skipping quickly.
Yeah. And anyway, we'll do some arm twisting after the meeting. But the reason the Pennsylvania Game Commission is so interested in this, because the warblers are an endangered species, and they saw this area along the canal, about a third of a mile south from Black Rock Road. And the Game Commission guy, I forget what his name is, very knowledgeable. He thought that was ideal habitat, you know, for these warblers. So anyway, a good project, and we checked already with the township, and they're okay. We just wanted to make sure it's township property, because the lines are kind of different along that area. So this is definitely Lower Makefield property that they will be putting them on. All right, thank you, Jeanne. All right, the next item is a update on land use plans. Alan?
Yeah, sure. There were no new or revised development plans submitted to the township this last month. There was, however, on the May 21st Board of Supervisor meeting, they approved the Wright Farm development. It's a 47 home development out there on Newtown Yardley Road. And it turned out to be a little better than the initial expectation. There's a 10-acre open space plot right along Newtown Yardley Road between the road and the houses. And it was initially thought to be a good place to farm, but then the Farmland Preservation Committee decided it wasn't that great. And so we got the developer to put, John, correct me, was it 1,200 trees are going in that space? Something like that, a huge number of
Yeah.
trees
Hmm.
are going in there.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was great.
Yeah.
And some other stuff too. And I believe, John, aren't we supposed to review the landscape plan? That was discussed at the meeting.
Yes, my assumption is, and I'm not sure.
You're right.
it's
Yeah, I think we
1,200
are.
Roughly. I know it's over 1,000. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's exactly 1,200.
Okay.
But, so yeah, the intent would be that you, my understanding is you'd be involved in the review of the final plans. For
Right. Because,
Yeah, I believe they asked us too for some information regarding species selection and
Yeah.
things like that too. So,
So,
I mean,
we
we
can
don't particularly love the idea of it being turned into homes, but 1,200 trees is a bonus to be planted.
Oh, and it
There.
does a couple things. One is it provides a visual buffer for the residents that would be moving there, in addition to helping with stormwater management. So we try to, in working with the developer, try and get the development to meet as much as possible of our new stormwater management ordinance, even though legally they didn't have to because of when
Right.
they filed. And they're pretty close, which is good. So, that one probably is maybe the best outcome of, if you were thinking about where we started, where we're at, that one pretty good outcome. So,
Yeah,
but-
I agree. I think, that's it's a good plan, and it happens when
Yeah.
people sit down and start talking about things.
yes, and
Yeah.
the participants worked well together. Whether it was the township staff and the developer and stuff that one. But since we're talking species selection for plantings, we have some Bradford pear trees along the frontage of the municipal campus that are not considered a good choice. So we're looking to replace those. So if the EAC has recommendations for those, certainly open to hearing that.
Funny you said
Yeah.
that. About several hours ago, I received an email from Township Manager Dave Kratzer, and he said, "Hey, Jim, we want to
Which
do
one?
this. Do you have any idea?"
Yeah.
Well, I love trees, and off the top of my head, I think we have to do a little more research.
Okay.
I think there's two that would be absolutely perfect. The first one is sourwood. Sourwood is also called lily of the valley tree. It is spectacular when it blooms, and it's even more spectacular in the fall. It also gets to a height of maybe 40, 50 feet. And along that road, you're not going to want to have any oaks or anything like that. And the other selection I thought of off the top of my head was black cherry, which is the really Native American tree, the Native American cherry. It's got a lot of pluses for it, and it's pretty hardy. And then David also mentioned that somebody had, maybe it was us too, several years ago, we talked about dogwoods, which would also be, I think, a good choice. They might not get as tall, though, as the Japanese cherries that are further up the road. And I don't know what the long-term outlook for those trees are, but quite frankly, they're not native, but they're not invasive. So I'm not sure I would be in too much of a hurry to get rid of those. But the Bradford pears are another story. We're starting to see those. I'm a big biker along the canal. I'm starting to see them everywhere in the woodlands, okay?
Yeah,
Because of, I guess the seeds are airborne for one
one in
thing.
the yard.
So anyway, we'll take a
Okay.
little further look at it, but on the sourwood, to me, I know I'm biased, but I think it's one of the most beautiful trees that, that we have in our lexicon.
and two more things, Jim. One is we have a new township engineer. It's HRG. They're replacing Remington Vernick. And HRG were the ones that did the stormwater ordinance just this last year. So they have a lot of experience.
When is this taking place, John?
Right now.
At our next meeting, you'll
Yeah.
probably. We announced it at the last meeting, that HRG would be our new township engineer. As many folks know, we recurring have RFPs to consider professional services firms, and they were the winners of this most recent process.
Okay.
Yeah, they seem like a good company. And the other thing is, I got to go now. We have a reservation at Casa Bonita. It's a restaurant. The guys who developed South Park, you know, the cartoon, they put like $15 million into this. It's got cliff divers, Marinucci bands, Black Bart's Cave. So my grandkids are going to love it.
Yeah, well, thank you for taking,
Yeah.
you know, the time. That was above and beyond the call of duty,
Oh.
Alan, when you could be watching those other things.
No, this is
All right,
fun.
well, actually,
Yeah.
the rest of the meeting is nothing that we need to vote on, so.
Yeah, right. And the Bowman's Hill Award, you're going to tell them about that?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
I will.
That's a good thing. All right.
Okay, thanks, Alan.
See everybody later.
All right, the next item on the agenda, open space, review LMT proposal to turn its 5-acre open space area that's next to the Regency into a native plant meadow. I also sent out some attachments as far as that was concerned. Well, about 3 weeks ago, Dave Kratzer approached me and he asked if the EAC could take a look at this 5-acre tract that really required very, very high maintenance over the years. And as soon as I looked at it, I thought it would be an ideal candidate for a meadow. So I wrote up a report, dealt with Ernst Seed Company that I've dealt with before in the future. They're a Pennsylvania firm, highly rated, and they basically can provide seed mixes for just anything that, you know, you can talk about. And myself, Derek Fuller, Jim Majewski, and Monica Tierney met with 4 representatives from the Regency HOA, and we went over the proposal in detail and answered a lot of questions that the the gentleman had. Already, what we've done, and the other thing they had mentioned too, is that they said, well, you know, we know it's Lower Makefield's property and that, you know, they can do what they want. And I mentioned to Mark, I said, you know, Mark, LMT is a good place to live. Before, we always use the last tool in the box. We always try to get approval and consensus, and we will bend over backwards talking to you people to see if we can come up with a plan that you think makes sense. So anyway, that being said, I also dealt with Ernst again, and we came up with a specific wetland mix for the half-acre of wetlands on the property. They also had questioned the fact that, hey, we know that these meadows don't have much color first year. Can you throw in an annual? And talking to the people, yes, not a whole bunch though, because you don't want to crowd out the good stuff. But we decided on Cosmos, which would add a real burst of color all season long. And that was essentially it. We talked about the methodology involved in creating a meadow. So the report was sent to them a couple of days ago, and I'm assuming that they're going to get back to us. And then I think this is certainly going to be an ongoing process. But maintaining 5 acres of grass is a huge endeavor and a really, really large expense for Lower Makefield Township. And once a meadow is established, you spend a few bucks establishing it, but it's essentially a self-regulating system. And, you know, we answered questions from how many bugs are going to be there to rodents. I mean, you name it, okay? But hopefully in the next meeting, maybe we'll have their approval to move forward. But again, we're going to work with these people as much as we can. So any questions as far as that's concerned? Okay. So let's move on to the next item on the agenda. And proposed single-use plastics ban. So we recently had a lecture on microplastics by Mike Wheelbacher, and we've used Mike a couple of times before because the main reason he's really so good at what he does. And this lecture, we probably had, over 40 people attending, and the response was incredibly positive. And this is something, John, that I would like to talk to you about, in the near future. We think that a single-use plastic ban is a very, very important tool to be had in Lower Makefield Township. And again, I will be talking to you soon personally about that, and we'll see if we can start moving ahead on that. Dominique, do you have any comments?
No, except that I'd be curious to know what are the objections to the ban of the single-use plastics. What do people say apart from using the bags for their pets? So just a general.
I've heard a couple objections, and one was, and interestingly, California state government had a single-use plastic ban throughout the entire state. And they had some unintended consequences of that, and it had to go back and retool that. I don't know if you followed that at all, but if you've ever visited California, obviously, in many ways they're very aggressive on environmental policy, and they're also good to correct things too. Occasionally, there's a lot to learn there. But one of the things that they found was they had created a circumstance where people were creating multi-use plastic bags. And so they'd end up with more a real net plastic increase because people were paying 25 cents for the thicker, heavier plastic bags, which then weren't being reused in the same manner that cloth bag would be, right? Or a paper bag would be. So they went back to retool that. I think it was March timeframe. So there were some members that were concerned about that and wanted to see a little bit of what California did. And then for some, the research that's been done in New Jersey hasn't been as positive as one had hoped because of the process around selling reusable bags, but in causing more plastic in a situation where, again, those don't initially end up in landfill, but eventually do. So far, so I separate out what I've heard from others, and I give you this from discussions with, and I try to, anonymize so you don't know who says what. But one of the things I'll tell you honestly, I use the paper bags, quite frankly, is the best solution of those because they're recyclable. But the challenge is for the grocery stores. In many cases, I guess they're somewhat more expensive. But in general, I tend to prefer those. I'm willing to choose grocery stores that have those. I think at this point, my sense from talking to board members is there isn't a path to 3 votes right now. Some board members will likely change or are certain to change at the end of the year. And I would urge you that, again, you want to talk to others and get definitely perspective on that. So I don't have an answer for you as to when that might be considered or if it might be considered. So if there isn't the appetite among supervisors for that, the chair, whoever the chair is this year, next year, might not push for it just because there's not enough of an interest for it. I will say, we, are listening to what's happening in Newtown, both the positive and some concern that some people, I don't know if depending on the store, they've had signs Some of the store owners are not happy with that. But that depends. So like I walked into an Ulta beauty store and you're saying, well, why am I going to an Ulta? Trust me, at this point, if anybody's looking at me, it's not going to help. Right. But I have.
John, we all think you're a nice looking guy. Okay,
Yeah,
so.
but I was there and they had signage explaining and it was not, it was complaining about it in their signage. And I'm like, well, that's not good. And
Complaining about,
and they were basically saying the Newtown Township outlawed single-use plastic. So that's why we're not able to give you plastic bags. If you have a concern,
Yeah.
please call them at this,
Mhm.
So, by the way, generally, I just want to say I prefer Ulta over Sephora, just saying. But in any way, there are some folks that are not happy with it as store owners.
Right.
Now, the question is, what's the net impact for the community? Meaning, is the concerns of store owners and the folks who like them for dog waste outweighed by the environmental impact, right? Of not having all that single-use plastic in our waste streams or in our streams, quite frankly. That's an open discussion, and I think, there might be more work to get people
Right.
on.
John?
Yeah, well, at this stage, 40% actually of the people in the United States are covered by a single-use plastic bag ordinance. And I know what our people are looking at right now are others. One of our claims to fame over the years in the EAC was we were really good plagiarizers because there's a lot of good stuff out there. We don't want to make the mistakes that others have made. So we are taking a look at these, like California, I'm aware of what's going on there.
Yeah.
Newtown, we're aware of that. And I think when we come up with something, I think it's going to be first rate and it's going to comprehend a lot of, the issues that others had that were negative as far as they were concerned. But, when you look at it from certainly an environmental, viewpoint, it really, really makes a lot of sense. And our basic thesis in the EAC is that a healthy environment fosters all forms of life. And if you buy that, and I think it's good logic, then, things like this are real, real important. And eventually we want to move forward with them. We're also not to the point where we want to hit our heads against a stone wall either. We try not to do that because that's a waste of time. So sometimes, as you had mentioned, timing can be very, very important. But we appreciate your input, John. Any other comments?
Yeah, I just have a question. So John, do you think at this stage it would be worth our while to have somebody, an expert, talk about the single-use plastic bags and their effect on the environment to the Board of Supervisors? Because the answer to all these questions, they would have the answers to this question.
Potentially. But
No, we're okay.
Potentially that's something I can certainly talk to some folks about that. I'm pretty easy to everybody knows you can contact me pretty easily. I'm usually pretty fast on a call or email or what have you. Certainly if it's something you want to talk to other supervisors, your citizens, you can email and see where they're at on that if they.
well, it's more, I think, that you're talking about
Environment, yeah.
program.
And they are up to date with everything which goes on in the country, so.
Right, or if potentially, but I think, again, the folks with the New Jersey study were very persuaded by that in thinking about, because that was, well, and then the California stuff. So I'm wondering if the California thing that got passed, I believe. I have to go back and check. The retooled version got passed.
Check that too.
If there's reports about the effectiveness of that, and maybe somebody to push back on the New Jersey study, maybe. I can certainly talk to others and see if they're interested in learning more about that and potentially having that discussion. And it could be as simple as, you know, if in the same way that you have a microplastics lecture, you have a discussion on the challenges of single-use plastic, and the policy discussions around that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, actually, that might be interesting. We were an interesting approach too, but we were thinking of a presentation by people who really know what they're talking about, like Penn Environment, and they can answer all the questions. I think we have some good expertise on board here, but Penn Environment, you know, they're really, really experts, and you're talking probably less than a half hour. And this is not something where we're going to be saying, hey, we want the board to sign up on a single-use plastic bag. This is an informative session.
Yeah, I certainly talked to the chair about that in terms of their perspective on it. You know, as you know, I was chair last year, and I got direction from board members that to place single hauler above single-use plastic,
Right.
which in retrospect, boy, you can't trust my advice, huh?
That's all right. I just gave Jeanne some advice too. That was 100% wrong, John. So, and again, I like screwing up early in the day because it takes the pressure off.
Right, it makes it so much easier.
Oh.
So, you know, that was the advice I had gotten from supervisors then, and maybe now would be a time to touch base with them again. I'll certainly, like I said, I do talk to all of them all the time, so I'll bring that back up and see what their perspective is on timing.
All right.
Mhm.
Sounds good. Any other comments or?
No, I think that's,
Okay. Kevin?
I'd like to go after food styrofoam containers next.
Okay.
I'd like it to be more aggressive. That's just me.
a lot more after that, that's for sure.
Well,
You can get almost anything
yeah.
compostable these days.
Yeah, once we get rid of the single-use plastic bag,
Yeah, then we are.
you know how we are, John. We get a finger in the pie and then we just keep going, okay?
Well, weren't we gonna have the EAC, Ellen and Elaine? Gonna try to bring that.
Well, that was,
with-
Yeah, but I think.
it's actually part of the
Yeah.
presentation.
yeah.
I think, you know, I think your buddies with Ellen Snyder, I think.
Yes, I mean, I know many, I have great respect for Supervisor Snyder of Newtown.
Right.
She is a proponent of the policy
Right.
and
Yeah.
is very pleased with the outcome.
Yeah.
She has told me that.
To her.
Yeah. No, I talk and listen, and I'm sure not that she's watching, but if she were,
Right.
she'd be happy to know that I believe representing her views 100%.
Yeah, and I know she, having talked to her and Elaine McCarron, who was, I think, on the EAC there,
Mm-hmm.
that anytime they would be willing to come up to Lower Makefield Township and discuss that issue.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
okay.
Follow up and do my research.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. All right. The next item on the agenda is solar for LMT. Can you give us a little update on that, Kevin?
Yes, I heard from Dan this week that the shared energy manager did a walkthrough of the facilities, and they're kind of doing their due diligence to come up with some recommendations. So it's in process. I don't know what the timeline is, but I'm trying to insert myself into that process.
Can you talk a little, what's the shared energy manager? Who is that a position that LMT has said, okay, we're interested in this, and then somebody comes in and, you know, kind of scopes out the place?
I honestly don't know much about it. Is it a county-wide thing that we just participated in? Do you have any idea?
Oh, you mean a shared energy purchase?
The shared energy manager that's like evaluating the properties.
It could be part of our Bucks County Sustainable Development Director,
Okay.
and what they've done where they buy sustainable energy for the county and manage. I'm not sure of all the details on that
Okay.
one.
I'll find out more information. I don't know much about it.
Okay, all right. Sounds good. All right, the next item on the agenda, EAC lecture series, and we've been discussing the microplastics lecture. Firstly, one of the pluses from that lecture was the next item on the agenda, the updated publicity list that Dominique is taking care of. And this was a big job because I basically gave her a whole bunch of little sheets and names and numbers and stuff, and she whipped that into a beautiful format. So now we're seeing the results already. For the microplastics lecture, there were about 40 people there. Historically, we would get like 20 or 25. So the thing is, people are interested in this. We just have to reach them. And that lecture, by the way, was absolutely superb. Dominique did well, why don't you talk about it? You did that little informal poll about people who were in favor of like a single-use.
Oh, right,
plastic
yeah.
bag.
So we had, on the list of people putting their names down for attending and email address, would you be willing, would you be for a plastic, single plastic bag use ban? And most people who came said yes.
Right.
So there was 2 maybes.
Yeah, we didn't review everybody, okay, but maybe half the people we reviewed, and 17 said definitely, and 2 said, I got to think about it.
Yeah.
Also,
So,
it's a little preaching to the choir because it's
Yeah.
the people that would come
Right.
generally would be
Exactly.
more supportive.
So it was
Keep
surprising.
that in mind.
It was surprising.
Well,
A little realist, Cap. Sorry.
It was surprising.
selection as
Maybe.
well.
Jeanne's taking notes. Would you please strike that last comment from the records? Okay, all right. So, and we discussed possible fall lectures. Does anybody have any idea for the fall lecture? You know, since Birdtown has joined us, we've always had a couple of lectures a year. Now we're having like 4 or 5 or 6. And again, I keep saying that one of the reasons for that is because of the generosity of the Board of Supervisors that gives us an ample enough budget to make things like this possible. And the people, quite frankly, are very, very thankful. They love the microplastics. They love the wildlife exhibitions we're having. Only happens because we have the money to make it happen. And the board gives us that money. So anyway, any,
What about native plants and trees? I mean, I know you've done it before, but.
yeah, I mean, that's for the Master Gardener Network and also for Bowman's Hill Wildflower Preserve. I've given lectures on our native plant ordinance and the value of native plants, probably maybe 20 times over the year. So, and especially the ones from Lower Makefield, our ordinance, I've talked to other municipalities, and as a result, several of them has actually copied our native plant ordinance verbatim. And it was interesting when that first went in April of 2007, Mary Beth was the secretary here. And about a week later, she called me up and she said, Jim, we have to put this on our township website. I am getting calls from all over the United States about this. So how that happens, I don't know, but there's some kind of network that people find out about these things.
Mhm.
So, yeah, we can certainly discuss that. And one of the real bonuses is that my charge is 0. Okay. So anyway, but we can certainly discuss that.
I have one idea for a lecture series topic. It has to do with HVAC.
Okay.
So the industry is in the midst of a refrigerant transition right now that could potentially impact homeowners and property managers because the refrigerants we're used to are being phased out. So that's impacting the equipment. It's impacting how you can run piping within a building. So there's some safety and environmental impact associated with that as well.
All right, and you're in the business too, Kevin, so
Yes.
maybe we could discuss this. Maybe
Okay.
it's something that you might think about maybe giving a lecture on. Because I remember we just earlier, actually late last year, we had to replace our air conditioning and heating system. And I remember the fellow saying something about well, your old system had this refrigerant and that, is, we don't do that anymore and that sort of thing. So, yeah.
What's changing?
And not to get too technical, but there's different classifications of refrigerant, and they're trying to move. They've been gradually moving away from refrigerants with. At first, the concern was ozone depletion, and now the concern is more on global warming potential of refrigerant that can escape. So if there's a leak in the system or if it gets charged, the gas can get into the environment. So now there's a move away from that, and unfortunately, most of the refrigerants available that have that lower global warming potential are more flammable. So that creates some risk. So there has to be some design changes associated with that.
Okay.
But it's been the process has been going on for a few years, but we're getting to kind of some critical deadlines. And manufacturers are running out of equipment too that they're allowed to make.
Okay. All right. The next item on the agenda is the updated publicity list, which we talked about briefly. But when I had that meeting with the homeowners association in Regency regarding the 5-acre open space, it kind of dawned on me that we have these associations all over the township. And so I talked to Dominique, and Dominique is going to try and find who heads up these associations. And then every time we have a new lecture or exhibition, send it to the person in charge and saying, hey, this is pretty cool stuff. Why don't you let your members know about that? They're not going to give us their members list of several hundred people, and I'm not sure we would want that. But I know all these people have large lists, and that might even boost our attendance even more. So, all right, next item, the EAC and township newsletters. Paul's not here, but what we're doing.
Oh, yes, I am.
Oh,
I'm
you're
here.
I don't know what happened.
Just my
here, but
video's
anyway, I
not
was gonna
working.
say, Paul and Dominique are working together, and when we have these lectures, they're starting out like a month or two ahead, then a month, then maybe a couple of weeks, and then sometimes 3 or 4 days before. But Paul, you want to just talk briefly about some of the ones you sent out from microplastic that certainly ended up in good attendance at the meeting.
Yeah, Dominique put together a great line. We'll be able to use it twice and send it out. And people have responded to it with, good comments, thanking us for arranging these things and keeping our list going.
Okay, thank you. Dominique, any other comments?
No, except that, Paul, would you add to your list the people who attended the microplastics, for instance? Is that possible?
If I get the list, sure, I'll add their names.
Yeah, I actually think Jeanne is preparing that list and Jeanne and Dominique are preparing it. They're going to send it to you very shortly, Paul.
Right. Great.
Jeanne is preparing. Sorry, Jeanne is preparing it and she will be sending it to you shortly.
Good.
We'll send it to her.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
Look, this is getting too complicated now. All right, let's move on to
It will be sent to you.
Yeah, let's move on to the last item on the agenda. All right, odds and ends. Nominating Tree Bank for a Bowman's Hill Wildflower Preserve Land Ethics Steward Award. So, as many of you know, I'm a naturalist at Bowman's Hill Wildflower Preserve and have been for many years. And I'm a member of the Education Committee, which is the committee that establishes, programming for the preserve. So the last meeting, we were talking about trees for some reason or another. And another member named Bldg, who also lives in Lower Makefield Township, knew a little about our tree bank ordinance. And he said, look, Jim is here. We were looking for submittals for the Land Ethics Stewardship Award. And he said, look, Jim is here. Why doesn't he talk to you briefly about Lower Makefield's tree planting program? And they were very, very impressed and asked us to come up with a submission for the Land Ethics Stewardship Award, which is a very prestigious award giving out by Bowman's Hill Wildflower Preserve once a year at their Land Ethics Symposium, which has hundreds of people attending. Now it's at Del Valle University, and they have experts in various environmental fields come out and discuss those issues. So anyway, Alan is actually preparing the submittal. It's just about ready to go out now. And so we're going to see what happens. But they were very, very impressed, especially when they found out thousands, not hundreds. Just say, yeah, our 2024 plan calls for the planting of 1,545 trees, and the taxpayers don't pay a single penny. So anyway, like I said, they were pretty impressed with that. So we'll see what happens. So that's about it. Any other odds and ends that anybody would like to bring up?
Just one question. I'm not sure if I understood. The award would go to whom?
Well, it would actually go, so it would be a joint award. It's the Lower Makefield Township and the Environmental Advisory Committee. So
Okay.
it's in a situation like this, it's kind of hard to divorce the two. I mean, so.
Okay.
And if it happens, we'll have a little hoopla. We'll have the appropriate parties out there and and make a nice day of it. So we'll see what happens. Okay, I guess that's it. If no more odds and ends or anything, I will officially close the meeting for June 12th, 2025, and hope everybody enjoys the rest of the evening.
Thank you.
Right
Thank
now,
you.
I have to figure out how to shut this off here.
Hi. Can I give you a hug? I haven't seen you in so long. Yeah, whoops, well.
All right. I need a little gas thing off. Let's see. Ending the meeting. Stop the recording.
Yeah, turn this one on.
Hello.